When we think about World War II, our minds usually go to the big battles, the grand strategies. But today, we're going to zoom in on a different kind of front line, the American home front back in 1943. We'll see it all through the eyes of one family, just waiting for a new life to begin and holding on tight to a promise for the future. That one line, spoken by a young husband to his very pregnant wife, really gets to the heart of this whole story. It's a defiant pushback against the massive anxiety of the time, and it perfectly sets the stage for a story about finding hope, even when you're living in the shadow of war. Okay, let's dive in. All right, so picture this. We're in Chula Vista, California. The year is 1943. The entire world is at war. And for this young couple, Betty and Fred Seaver, life is this really delicate balancing act between their own personal joy and this huge public uncertainty. They're about to have their first child, which is amazing, but it's all happening against a backdrop of total global chaos. I mean, can you even imagine that kind of tension? On one side, you've got all the quiet, happy preparations for a baby. Getting the nursery ready, the excitement, dreaming about who this little person is going to be. And then on the other side, you've got the radio blaring news of battles, casualty lists getting longer, and this constant nagging question of, what's going to happen to us, to the world? And here's what made that anxiety so personal and so immediate. Fred was classified 1A. Now that meant he was prime material for the draft. Expectant fathers, they got a temporary deferment, but that's the key word, temporary. The baby's birth would buy him a few more months at home, but after that, he could get called up any time. It was this shadow that just followed them everywhere. So with that huge threat of the draft constantly hanging over their heads, daily life on the home front wasn't slow or quiet. Not at all. The war effort demanded absolutely everything from everyone, especially from guys like Fred who were in essential industries. See, Fred wasn't a soldier on a battlefield, but his work was directly connected to it. He was a material controller at a place called Roar Aircraft, and they were making critical parts for the B-24 Liberator bomber. The government always wanted more planes faster, so the pressure to deliver was just immense. I mean, the lives of soldiers overseas literally depended on how well factories like his could do their job. And this quote from Fred, wow, you can just feel his frustration, can't you? It really shows the personal toll that pressure took. He wasn't just managing parts and supplies. He was managing this constant revolving door of brand new, inexperienced workers in a super high-stakes job. It had to be completely exhausting. And this was the new American workforce. I mean, think about it. With so many young men serving overseas, who was left to run the factories? It was older men, teenagers, and, famously, women who had never, ever stepped foot on a production floor before. This was a massive shift happening all across the country, and the burden of training everyone up to speed fell on supervisors like Fred. So, in the middle of all this pressure and this big, scary uncertainty, people just fought to create these little pockets of normalcy. These small, everyday routines were their own form of resistance, a way of holding on to who they were. And we see that so clearly with Betty and Fred. I mean, just take this one little moment. Betty is 8 months pregnant. She's probably feeling pretty miserable, and yet she is determined to go out and buy her husband a birthday gift. Something as simple as a trip to the store becomes this huge effort. It's a real testament to her love and her need to keep those simple family traditions alive. It's what anchors you. And the gift itself, it's just so symbolic. A briefcase. That's something for a professional, right? For a man with a future, a career, a life at home. By buying him that, it's like she's making a statement of faith that there will be a normal life after the war. A life where Fred needs a briefcase for his job, not a duffel bag for the army. So as the days kept ticking by, the idea of the baby became more and more real, more concrete. And that brought on a whole new wave of preparations. And a whole new set of anxieties, too. You can actually feel their lives speeding up here, right? The anticipation is just building and building as Betty's doctor appointments get closer and closer together. What was once this abstract idea of a baby was about to become a very real, very imminent person. And then there's this moment, this quiet, unvarnished, totally honest exchange between them. Away from all the patriotic, we can do it posters and the need to be brave for everyone else, there was real fear. Fear of childbirth, fear for the baby's health, and just this overwhelming fear of bringing a child into such a broken, uncertain world. Even something as simple as picking out a name took on this incredible weight. It wasn't just about what sounded nice. It was about honoring their families, about weaving together their past to build an identity for a future they couldn't even see yet. They finally landed on Ranslow Frederick for a boy and Alma Emily for a girl. Every name was a story, a compromise, and just an act of incredible hope. Okay, so all of these different threads, the love, the fear, the hope, all that waiting, it all comes together and converges on one single, very significant day. A day that really just captures the entire experience of what it was like to live on the home front. So the date is October 15th, 1943. And what are the odds? It's not just Fred's 32nd birthday, a day for celebrating him, it's also the baby's official due date, the day their entire world was supposed to change. The baby, of course, had other plans and decided to make them wait. But even with the waiting and the suspense, they celebrated. And their celebration was made up of these simple, beautiful little moments. A special homemade coffee cake for breakfast, the joy on Fred's face when he saw the briefcase, a slow walk around their neighborhood, and then a quiet dinner with close friends who were basically family. These were the little rituals that kept them strong. And when Fred blew out the candles on his cake, his wish, man, it was the silent prayer of the entire country. It had two parts that were completely tied together: the very personal hope for his new little family and the huge collective hope for an end to the war. Later that night, you get this quiet moment of just pure awe from Fred. When you think about everything going on, global destruction, factory pressures, politics, they were able to just pause and focus on the simple, powerful miracle of the new life they'd created together. So that's how the day ended. Just two people, right, on the brink of this massive change, sitting in silence together, feeling their child move. I mean, that moment had to be filled with both terror and this incredible, profound anticipation. Their own personal world was about to be completely remade, even while the world outside was being torn apart. You know, the story of Betty and Fred back in 1943 isn't really just about the past. It asks a question that we can all relate to in any time of uncertainty. And their answer? It wasn't found in some big heroic gesture. It was found in all those small, daily acts of love, of hope, and sheer determination. It was in choosing a name, buying a gift, and just showing up for each other while they waited for a promise to be fulfilled.